And good morning, everyone. I am Tanya Maddox with Montrose Matters Live. And in the Montrose Matters studio, I have a guest who bought a prop. I have Daniel Carnes, and between us is a real money tree. So we're going to be talking to Daniel with Eldorado Financial, and later in the show, before we finish, we are going to give away this money tree. So start getting your financial questions. Get your financial questions ready. But before we chat with Daniel and get to the money tree, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. We have some amazing sponsors and underwriters. And Alpine Bank, our newest sponsor and underwriter, thank you so much for supporting Montrose Matters and bringing this show to Montrose. We also have Elevate Fiber, and we have River Valley Family Health. Without you all, we could not bring this show to you live each and every week with hopefully some good content. Okay, so I know that most of us have money on our minds, so let's get through some events and some deadlines, because one of them does include money. Coming up on May 10th is the deadline. That is next week, Daniel.
It is next week.
So guess what's happening? DMEA, in lieu of having an annual meeting, they are giving $30,000 away in micro and small business grants to small business owners.
That's
I know.
quite a
I wish I
bit.
had some cash to do that. Yeah. So, all right, whoever wins the money tree, there's a 5 on the floor. We'll make sure we get that for you. But don't miss that deadline. Every business is available to apply that's in the DMEA district. So that is happening next week. On Friday, May 14th, some Fab women are getting together for a Fab, and that means for, about, and by women conference and awards. And guess what? The award winners, the Women of Excellence, has been announced. So, Drew, I think we have that slide. Let's see who those winners are. On May 14th, these amazing women will receive their award for Women of Excellence. And I see Eldorado Financial on there. Would you happen to know that person?
That is my way more beautiful half, my wife, Jamie. So congrats, babe. Good job.
And congratulations to all of the women. So be sure to register at events.ourtownmatters.net to help us hand out awards to these amazing women and hear a great speaker coming all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina. Her name is Kelly Burns, and she founded Lucky Dog Bark and Brew. Okay, so on the next day, for all you people who like to fish, who likes to fish around here? Do you? Do you know how?
I maybe did it once.
Okay. So my understanding is the Carnes have a little guy named Zion.
Oh,
so
yeah.
when Zion is ready to fish, guess what? He can go to the Montrose Rotary Club's annual fishing derby.
Ooh,
yeah, so that's happening this Saturday at Chipeta Lake. So this Saturday, Montrose Rotary Club Fishing Derby at Chipeta Lake. And then for all those people who like to network, have a great lunch, and do business together, Power Players has happened on May 20th. And then, if that wasn't enough, we are rounding out the month on May 27th. The Greater Montrose Chamber of Commerce is having their business after hours. That's the first one since the chamber launched or had their initial official grand opening just a couple of weeks ago. And it was well attended. You were there, right?
It was a lot of fun, a lot of people. It was just great atmosphere. Jamie and I really enjoyed ourselves. It was really
good.
Great.
Well, we're happy that the chamber is back. So we are going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about some money. We'll be right back.
Employees, and we were in a double wide trailer with 4 exam rooms. So that's where we started, behind an elementary school, really focused on taking care of those children. It was a school-based clinic prior to us becoming an FQHC. But very quickly, we realized the community needed a lot more support, a lot more access to healthcare. So in the last 8 years, we've grown to 3 different sites. We have 104 employees now, and we're taking care of about 6,600 unique patients a year.
You're proud to call Colorado home. So are we. Since 1973, we've been giving back to the communities where we live, work, and play across our great state. And we're here to stay. If you're looking for an independent, locally managed community bank where the employees are also the owners, we would like to be your bank. We're Alpine Bank.
Yes.
Gosh. Wow. Do you believe that COVID is like over basically in Montrose? We're living.
I think everyone's just been so sequestered and so stir crazy that they're just ready to get out and enjoy the outdoors. Summer's just around the corner, and we're all really pumped about it.
Good. So how are your clients doing? I mean, in a post-COVID world, what do personal finances look like?
Well, I mean, the thing about, the one lesson learned during COVID was this is why we have an emergency fund. That 3 to 6 months, that's the typical advice within the industry. I promise I won't go too Dave Ramsey on everybody.
But I like Dave Ramsey.
No, so that 3 to 6 months, typically that's the general advice for self-employed individuals, or you're kind of the gig economy. A good idea is about having a year's worth of emergency fund. That's the typical advice, just because if something happens to you, you can recover and you have some cash to tie you over. So
I should ask my bookkeeper if we have a year's worth of funds in our account.
It depends on your situation, but no, having that emergency fund, what we saw during COVID, people unfortunately, were laid off, they were furloughed. If they had just a little extra cash, they would have tied them over. We really try to empower people to really hunker down and empower them to get them through the hard times. And I think having a good emergency fund is key to that. So that's number one. Number two, and this is kind of where I get into the stock market jargon. The S&P 500 index dropped from February 19th to March 23rd, 35%, okay? Now, to help put that in perspective, that's 35% in 24 trading days. Back in 2008, when we had that lovely little mortgage crisis, the S&P fell 55% in 17 months, okay? So this was not normal at all. Now, the thing about finance, at least in my experience thus far, it's weird, really weird how it has this impeccable timing. You know what I mean? So I was talking to Jim last year, and he was telling me that he had like 2 or 3 clients, and try to talk them off the ledge, try to calm down the fears. They just wanted to sell out, and they sold out right at the very bottom. Last year during COVID, we had 3 clients sell out. I swear, I don't know if it's God's funny sense of humor or the universe. They sold out virtually right at the very bottom. But why am I saying that? What happened to the S&P after that March 23rd bottom? Went up over 70% for the rest of the year. And then we went into election volatility, which is normal, but all those gains that they missed. And, as the old saying goes, those who get hurt on a roller coaster are those that jump off mid-ride. And you just have to hunker down. You have to take the account statement, throw it in the drawer, just don't look at it. It's fine, turn off the news, stop listening to whatever.
Well, that's hard for some of us to do.
Right, I know. So that's kind of been the big lessons that we learned. Just having a good, healthy emergency fund to tie you over. And on top of that, one thing I almost forgot is we typically recommend about 1, no more than 2 months of cash on hand. So what we saw during COVID, especially here in Montrose, was the banks were closed for like a day or two. So if you had just a nice, healthy, 1 month's worth of cash on hand, if the banks are closed for whatever reason, that should tie you over.
Okay. So what do you think? Was it panic or just not truly understanding?
Well, I mean, we just never been through a pandemic before, at least not in my knowledge. Or
you're not 100 years old.
I'm not 100 years old, right? Well, I mean, even
sure.
So, my boss Jim Elder, he started the company back in '98, and they just had started El Dorado, and then .com happened, and then fast forward to 2008, we had that whole crash. And so what was interesting about COVID was that we had no idea how we were going to deal with this situation, but then the bigger question was, how are the markets going to react?
Right.
And so, when you can't see half past the windshield, you just have to keep calm. You just have to go slow and steady. You cannot let fear dictate your financial decisions. I think it was Art Laffer, who was the chief economist for the Reagan administration. He said that people do not make good decisions when they are drunk, and they do not make good decisions when they're in a panic. I mean, he's not wrong.
What about when they're drunk and in a panic at the same time?
Double-edged sword,
Is
apparently.
it? Okay. So then let's not get in a panic and let's make some smart financial decisions.
For sure.
So based on, Eldorado Financial is a fiduciary financial planning firm. Will you explain what that means? So to layman folks like me who did not major in finance in college, what is fiduciary? What is the difference between you and another firm?
So fiduciary is a legal term, and all it really means is I have to act in your best interest, whether it benefits me economically or not. So if it makes sense for you to pay off your debt, or if it makes sense for you to pay off your mortgage, or if it makes sense for you to build an emergency fund. So there's so many different areas that we can, we have to just make sure that at the end of the day, in the long run, our advice is in your best interest.
Okay.
Now, the way that we operate as a fee-only advisor, when we make recommendations for investments, we don't make a commission. We don't sell insurance products, we don't sell annuities. I'm not going to recommend some mutual fund and then make a commission in the back end.
Okay.
We are strictly fee only. And the reason why we love that model so much is because it incentivizes us as the advisor to work harder for your money.
Yes. Okay.
So if I can get your money to grow, we charge our management fee, we make more. If accounts value falls or starts to decline, we make less. And so our incentives are in line, and that's the big picture that we really try to strive with people.
Good. Okay, that's good to. So now that I'm clear on what that means, it was really for me, not just everybody else, the viewers out there. So between the clients that you have, the people that you interact with, and from a investor standpoint, what should people be looking out for right now?
So I will tell you straight up right now, the number of times this has happened within the last year, client or somebody will walk in or call me and they read some article in the newspaper or on some website, and the government has the power to take money from your bank account, and we're just kind of sitting there. It's like, if they actually did that, how many pitchforks and torches do you think will be covered in Washington D.C.? So it's
so they don't have the power to take money from my bank account.
It just doesn't make any sense. So that's the kind of the logical side. The other side of it is you have to read between the lines. When you read articles and opinion pieces like that, you have to be very vigilant, because 9 times out of 10 when I look at those articles, it will say either sponsored content on the top of the article, or somewhere towards the bottom there's going to be some kind of sales pitch. I just actually had a lunch meeting with a client, and it was the same thing. It was like, oh, companies are doing this, and there was just all these fear tactics or fear tactic marketing. So that's number one, is just, when you're reading these pieces, really try to ask the question, what is their incentive to say what they're saying? So 9 times out of 10, when you're reading something about the government taking your money out of your bank account and, this and that, and usually most of the time it's buy gold, buy silver, here's this perfect company for you to buy from and stuff like that. So just, again, kind of going back to what I was saying about fear, you cannot let fear dictate your life, and you just don't want it to affect your finances at all.
And when it's online, click through. Most of it is, many times, I can't say most of it, but many times what you're saying is it's clickbait.
Exactly.
What is it that what's the next step that they want you to take?
It's the old saying in the media, if it bleeds, it leads. And it's all, controversy and breaking news all the time, so.
I was publisher of newspaper, right?
You are.
So that's okay. We didn't say that all the time, but many times that was true.
Good journalism like you is what we really appreciate.
Okay, that was a very, very nice save, Mr. Daniel Carnes. So I have, on this money tree, we have this little thing called paper money.
Yeah.
And these are in $5 increments. Oh, and by the way, get your questions ready, because we really will allow you to come pick up this tree full of money today. Tell me the value, the worth of this paper money. How do you reply to people who say, this is really not valued at $5 because the government can just print more currency?
So what you're touching,
you say that so calmly. He's like, yeah.
So the thing about our little green pieces of paper that we call money in our currency, what you're touching on is inflation. And in real simple English, inflation is more money chasing after the same number of goods and services. So if I took, all this money from this tree, and let's say this table, the surface of this table is the US economy. When the government, when the Federal Reserve, when we pass stimulus packages, when all that money is being injected into our economy, that's more money on the table. When there's more money on the table, that's more money chasing after things like this cup or this plant. And so what you're gonna see is with all this money being thrown onto the table, the price of this cup is gonna start going up. And so, and the real kind of the question to ask is, you and I remember when we were kids and, how much a gallon of gasoline, and a lot of our viewers, how much a gallon of gasoline cost, how much. I was just talking to my boss, Jim Elder, and he was saying, I remember when a cheeseburger was like 15 cents, and just, you kind of ask the question, it's like, why does the value of not the value, but like the cost of everyday things go up over time?
Yes.
And it really comes back to more money chasing after the same number of goods and services. And now you're asking the question, why does it have value? Well, the thing about currency is that it works when people believe in it and it fails when they don't.
Okay.
And so really in 1971, we were on the gold standard. So gold was basically backing this paper. It was actually in the Song Dynasty in 7th century China. Chinese merchants, they were using copper coins at the time, and it was just really hard to lug all this metal around. And nowadays we call it a hard money currency system, but it was very inconvenient, and you got to lug all this metal around, and you had to protect it. And so what the merchants figured out in that time in China's history was, hey, let's have these pieces of paper, let's call them promissory notes, and let's just streamline the whole process and have that copper backing this paper. And so that's where the paper currency comes from. Fast forward to the 10th century, we got this guy named Genghis Khan coming out of nowhere, unifying the Mongol tribes. They start to invade China. Well, now you have this unprecedented event. And so at the time, the government said, well, we got basically a monopoly on this paper. Why don't we just print it and keep printing it to help pay for the war effort? And so that was the first time that humanity ever experimented with a truly fiat monetary system.
Okay. So I'm going to interject here.
Sure.
So when I was in college, there was in the common area, there was a Coke machine and a snack machine. And not that I visited those often, but I could put $1 in one of those, and I could get 2 sodas and 2 snacks, 2 bags of chips. Right now, they're asking for $5 or the swipe of a card, and I might get a soda and a bag of chips. So what you're basically telling me is the value of those 2 things did not change. The amount of dollars out in the system is the only thing that changed.
So in the industry, we call it purchasing power. So when, a hamburger costs 15 cents, the dollar had a really strong purchasing power. Now that the dollar can only, a dollar can only buy you half a Coke nowadays. That means the purchasing power of our money is constantly going down. So the reason why that is, and the question that I try to get people to realize is, why is it that our money keeps going down in purchasing power? So at the end of the day, it comes.
And how do we stop it?
Exactly. Well, so right now the government, our nation's debt is about $28 trillion.
Okay.
So the Federal Reserve, which is our central bank, used to be on a gold standard. Richard Nixon took us off that in '71. Now the central bank can print infinite amounts of money. So because the central bank can print infinite amounts of money, the government can go into infinite amounts of debt, which then because of the, and all that's because the Federal Reserve can print infinite amounts of money. So the reason why we have inflation is because inflation is a way to service the debt from the government. So if I borrow, if I'm the United States Treasury and I give you, let's say I go up to Tanya and I said, hey, I want to borrow $5. So you give me $5, I give you a bond, or I give you a piece of paper that's a bond. We call it a bond, and I'll pay you some interest on it. Well, I have to pay you back that $5 in a year. When you adjust inflation for that same $5, I give Tanya her $5 back, but really I'm paying her back less because that $5 is worth less than it was a year ago.
Well, then I want 2 of these $5 bills.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about some new money. And the new money, you can't pick it up, you can't touch it, but guess what? You can sure spend it. We'll be right back with Daniel Carnes. Do you imagine taking your business to the next level? You can stop imagining. We can help make it a reality. Helping businesses elevate their brand is our business. Contact Our Town Matters today for a free marketing evaluation and consultation. Call 970-765-0913 or visit ourtownmatters.net.
Believe it, just like Gigfoot, zero-lag gaming does exist. The real myth now? Slow internet made you lose. So step up your game with Elevate Internet today.
Cheese balls, Daniel. One day someone is going to bring in cheese balls that we'll have on the table.
We'll just have stacks of those like cheese ball containers everywhere.
It's that sad. I'm like, forget about the money tree. I just want cheese balls. Just because of the Elevate commercial. So we were talking about, hard dollars and so forth, and just the how financial planning and so forth has changed since the pandemic is we're getting through it. But one of the things that's been on the rise for several years now, kind of on the back burner, are terms that I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing correctly. And I honestly thought it was a joke. But explain this cryptocurrency. Okay. And am I going to die?
No.
Do I have to die to use it?
No. So the important thing to do is to establish some good nomenclature. So cryptocurrency, crypto is the term that's kind of referencing the cryptography that goes into Bitcoin and Ethereum and Ripple and all these other kind of digital assets. So for me personally, whenever I talk about these kinds of digital assets or digital currencies, that's the terminology I use. So I'll say digital assets, I'll say digital currencies, depending on the context that I'm using at that time.
He's correcting me, and I'm okay with that.
The reason why I say I kind of steer away from using the word crypto is because when you say crypto, people will often think of a crypt, and then when people think of crypts, they think of death, and we don't want any of that. So no, but yeah, digital assets. I will tell you right now, since moving to Montrose and speaking with other people around town, I just believe that it is too big of an asset class to ignore.
Interesting. Okay. So crypto, I can't even use crypto. Digital currency is too big of an asset class to ignore. All right. So since we can't ignore it, what do we do with it?
So as far as if it's is it a currency? Is it an asset? Is it a store of value? You have to understand is that it's still relatively young. For Bitcoin in particular, we're still about 12 years, so 13 years into its existence. Okay.
That's older than my child. Okay, 12 years or 13 years of this little thing here. And don't forget to send in your questions because we really are giving away a money treat today. So explain Bitcoin.
Sure, for sure. Okay, first of all, this is not actual Bitcoin. This is like literally a copper coin that's painted gold with the Bitcoin symbol on it.
Great.
So just don't think
it has no value. I'll throw it in the money tree.
Right. Exactly. So as far as Bitcoin is concerned, we have to go back to, I think, Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper on on Bitcoin.
Because we've all read, Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, but okay.
So what a white paper is just kind of basically like a education kind of way. It's basically like a thesis paper, essentially. Yeah. So
That's the only part of what you said that I understood.
I'm trying.
You are trying.
No. So the title of Satoshi's white paper on Bitcoin was Bitcoin Peer-to-Peer Electronic Cash System.
Okay.
All right. So, and if you go to a bank, we have our dollars. We go to a bank account, and usually on the window screen somewhere at the bank, it's going to say FDIC insurance. And so the idea with Bitcoin, the reason why it was created, we talked about debt, we talked about inflation, we talked about the prices of everyday things going up. And let me just say one thing too, for me at least, I just find it interesting how, everyday Americans have to work harder this year than they've had the previous year to live. So,
I know nothing about that.
So let me give you another example. So let's say I'm producing widgets. Mm-hmm. I have to make and sell 10,000 widgets to be profitable this year. Now, do you think 10, 15 years ago that I had to sell 10,000 widgets, or could have gotten away with a lot less?
Probably a lot less.
And that's exactly the point. The reason why I'm so passionate about this new digital currency and new asset class is that what Satoshi basically presented was, why don't we create a money system where trust is built into it, and instead of money being printed out of thin air and being thrown into the economy, causing goods and services and those prices to go up. What if we had something that was deflationary? What if we had something where it was a scarce form of transactions? And that's where Bitcoin comes into play. One of the things, during my studies and all that, we learned that, money has to be 5 things. It has to be divisible. Mm-hmm. It has to be durable. It has to be portable. Another subclass of that is secured.
Okay.
It has to be recognizable, and it has to be scarce. So throughout human history, we've experimented with a lot of different things. We've experimented with seashells, but you can just go to the beach and get as many seashells as you want. Fruit, or this little plant right here, I'm probably not the plant, but a fruit wouldn't be a good currency just because it rots. It's not very durable.
Right.
Gold is probably the best form of hard money that humans have been able to come up with, and it's had 5,000 years of human history. Now, the problem with gold nowadays is that if I wanted to go to San Juan Brews and get a cup of coffee, I'd have to take my gold nugget and shave off $2 worth of gold dust. That's not very divisible, not very practical.
No, and they wouldn't know what to do with it. Sorry, Popes at San Juan Coffee. But so basically you're saying those 5 things that this Bitcoin or this type of currency, because there's several of them, mm-hmm. Those are all valid with this currency.
So the thing about Bitcoin is that it helps solve those problems.
Okay.
It helps solve the problem of our inflationary-based financial system. It, instead of the value of the dollar going down, what Bitcoin is designed to do, because there's only 21 million Bitcoin to be mined, mm-hmm. There's, as far as I can't just, no one has central control over Bitcoin's blockchain and all that. This is designed to be deflationary, which means go up in value.
Okay, so I'm going to throw in just one barrier that I see mm-hmm. to this currency is that there are barriers. So mm-hmm. We're in rural Colorado, yep. And there are areas even more rural than us. Mm-hmm. What if they don't have access to the internet? So
that's one thing that a lot of our central banks are figuring out in what's called a central bank digital currency. It's not necessarily, basically their version of Bitcoin. It's still going to be an inflationary-based financial system. They can still print it out of thin air. Mm-hmm. But instead of doing paper cash, it's all going to be electronic. And what China did last year was they piloted towards the end of 2020. Now they're in the process of fully launching it. What's cool about China's digital currency issued by the central bank in that country is that I can just have my cell phone and have a QR code, and it doesn't need internet access to transact. Okay. And so if I'm in rural Colorado and I'm at Home Depot and I can't get any internet service, and that's not their fault, but when I go somewhere around town and I just can't get a good signal, my wallet is on my phone. And when I go to Our Town Matters and I pay for something, my wallet's going to keep track of how much money I actually have in my wallet on my phone.
That's
and so,
great.
so it's going to be more streamlined, and and they're having a lot of success with how you don't need internet access to transact. But it's great for the merchants because everything's controlled by the government, they're able to, you think about how much money a business pays to process transactions on a debit card, those costs basically go away. And so it helps the merchants out. There's still a lot of things that they're figuring out, and there's a lot of conversation and concerns about privacy and this and that. But, as far as paper money is concerned, I think we are slowly but surely working away from this. And it's going to be digital at some point.
Okay. So I think we have a question here,
Cool.
and we've got just a few more minutes, and I am trying to bring this question up. So, and I'm sure that our producer is going to be able to yell this out to me if I can't get
Want me
it.
just to read it?
Yes.
Okay. Megan Wilson says, what if you want to start planning for retirement and are later in life but don't have a lot of money to put away every month? What is the best thing to do?
Good question, Megan Wilson. So what do? You don't have a lot of money to put away every month, but it's time to start planning. What's your advice on that?
So, it's number one, you got to pay for the four walls. You got to have shelter, you got to have food, you got to have electricity and water and all that. The best, if you don't have, assuming that you're out of debt and assuming that, you're, just kind of going through, just whatever you put in can, just start saving away and start putting as much as you can. So the biggest thing, what's going to help a lot is getting rid of debt. So debt snowball, start with your slowest, your smallest debt, work your way up to the largest debt with the exception of your house. Well, the more debt that you free up, the more freedom your budget has.
I see.
And the more freedom your budget has, that's more money that you can put away. And I don't necessarily, if you listen to Dave Ramsey, he'll tell you that, he talks to people in their 50s all the time, and it's like it's never too late. Just start cranking into those growth stock mutual funds and just dollar cost average in as much as you can.
I love that. So hopefully that helped. And we are out of time. And guess what? That question is the winner. Wow. And
Want me to read it?
yes.
can
Okay.
read
We've
it.
got one more, and then we'll do a drawing. Sorry, Megan, but you still may win.
Michelle Clippard asks, do you see the government doing regulations on cryptocurrency in our near future?
So with cryptocurrency and the government and everything, I'll tell you this. I think it was yesterday.
So this question came in from Michelle Clippard.
Oh, sorry.
And it is, do you see the government putting regulations on cryptocurrency? So what do you think?
So it is definitely a possibility. Yesterday what happened was the Federal Reserve basically proposed new guidance as to who has access to our money system, our money payment system. And for years, traditionally, it's been banks, depositories and all that kind of stuff. So now that we're kind of in this age of digital information, with the emergence of, crypto assets and, digital assets, digital currencies, all that, what they're starting to do is starting to kind of propose updated rules so that way it's becoming more defined. So at the end of the day, there's a good chance, based on what I've been hearing and reading, is that we may start seeing like Bitcoin, for example, being able to have Bitcoin in your bank account.
Okay.
And another kind of 2 days ago, NYDIG announced that they got a deal with FIS, which is kind of like a back office grunt work for the banks, that they're going to be opening up crypto assets to all those bank accounts that FIS runs for. So as far as Bitcoin becoming illegal, as far as the government cracking down on it, my biggest wish is that from a tax standpoint they make it way more simple than it is, or just leaving it as just property. It kind of going back to what happened to Turkey earlier, the government basically banned those digital assets and digital currencies, and the activity in digital assets and digital currencies went up. And so unless the government is willing to virtually shut down the internet, I just don't see it happening personally.
Well, I am so glad that you came and educated me and actually a few others on just the value of paper money as well as the cryptocurrency, which I know I'm not allowed to say that anymore. But because this was such a lively show, and I know we went over, Daniel Carnes, you're amazing, and your knowledge base is phenomenal. We thank you for moving your family here to Montrose, for just doing everything you have been doing with Eldorado Financial, and we hope that you continue to do that.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
So I'm going to put Daniel on the spot, and I'm sure he's going to say yes, but if not. So we had two great questions that we were able to answer, and guess what? We're going to give away 2 money trees. So we've got $100 worth of cash on one tree here that we will let one of the winners pick up, and then we'll get the other one delivered today. So thank you so much for tuning in to Montrose Matters Live. We'll see you next week.